this morning, we are going to hear from Caroline Jones, who's in the sunny south, who who I came across originally, kind of 10 and a bit years ago when she launched her project, which she's going to tell you about. And I was really impressed by it then. And there was some coverage which I saw, I think, in the Guardian there was a BBC Online article as well. And Caroline has come back sort of 10 years down the line to revisit the project as well. And I think it's just a really inspiring project and a really clever idea to revisit it 10 years down the line as well. So if ever you've got a fundraising thing that you need to do or just want to pursue something different, I suspect you will be inspired by what Caroline's story is going to tell you this morning. So we're going to hear from her and see a little bit of film, and got some lovely images of Caroline as well doing her thing. And then Zoe Leigh Gadd, who is in Carlisle, is also going to be talking to us about some new dance project that is getting off the ground in the next few weeks, isn't it, Zoe? So we're going to hear Zoe's story as well. You're very much an innovator and an entrepreneur, Zoe. I always think you've always got lots of plates spinning, and this is another plate that you're spinning. So
Thanks,
really
Tom.
exciting to hear about that as well. And a few little slides, and I think a little bit of movement to watch there too. One other little thing before I forget, the red arrows are flying across Cumbria this morning. Did you know that? At 10:40, they are roughly flying from Maryport to Langwathby. They're on their way to somewhere. Hello, Amanda. So we will finish the call by 10:30. So if you like seeing the red arrows, it's a beautiful day. So if you look up and you're anywhere vaguely near that part of the world, you might see the red arrows this morning at 10:40. So I bring you excitement and news every morning, and that's my excitement and news for you this morning. The red arrows in town. Right. So let's kick off with Caroline. And Caroline, as I said, bumped into her online 10 years ago, didn't correspond at all. But when she popped up again, I thought, oh, she looks interesting. She's still doing interesting things. Let's make contact to say hello. So I did that a couple of weeks ago or a few weeks ago. And here we are. So Caroline, just come off mute. And we'll do some questions. We've got that breakfast TV piece that was out a few weeks ago, and also those images of you wearing your clothes as well. But first of all, tell us a bit about yourself and how you ended up doing what you're doing. Just come off mute first of all.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. This is such a lovely forum to be part of, and I love the creative space that you've created in Cumbria. So I'm really leaning into everything you're doing here. I want to be part of this. It sounds so exciting. But thank you, Tom, for connecting with me. And my background is I'm a mother. I've got 3 kids. I originate from Cheshire. My mum, Mary, very sadly, she passed away from breast cancer in October 2014. We were really good friends, really close, and great companionship. My mum volunteered at Cancer Research UK in the shop in Harpenden, where we live. And whilst she was having her chemotherapy, I started sort of covering her shifts and spending far longer inside my local charity shop, and reconnected really with my love of secondhand, which I'd always grown up with. I'm a child of the 70s, so hand-me-downs and jumble sales and wearing your mother's or your grandmother's clothes was just a very normal thing for me. And so after my mum sadly died, I decided to fundraise, which is very often something that people do when they're in the middle of that raw grief. You go, I've got to do something positive. And so I did. I launched Knickers Model's Own, which was tongue-in-cheek and a bit naughty, a little bit risque, using the Knickers word. But it has served me well because, like everything, there has to be a hook. And the reason I think that the Guardian, the Telegraph, the BBC, lots of other press and television, Loose Women, The One Show, all of those people were interested in it, I think, because of the name, because of what I was doing. I was styling myself up every single day, wearing a secondhand outfit, head to toe, other than my pants, which were always my own. So it's a great opener, and I would definitely give that as a little bit of advice. If you're looking for a hook, that's such a great thing. Have a good name, have a good way of just summing up what you're doing very quickly. So Yeah, I did it for
Was it
10
your
years.
idea, Nick? Was that name your idea, or did a
Yeah.
friend? Yeah,
No,
I
it
think
was
it's
my
genius. It's
idea.
genius.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know what? It came to me literally 10 minutes before the strike of midnight. So I started Knickers Model Zone on the 1st of January 2015. And 10 minutes earlier, I'd been pacing actually. I had this sort of adrenaline rush. I thought, I know what I'm going to do. My mum died 6 weeks ago. I can't be crying all the time. I'm going to do something positive. I'm going to dress up in secondhand clothes because I'm not going to walk. I'm not going to run. I'm not going to do a bike ride. I'm not going to sweat. Nothing charity. That's not for me. Um, I'm just going to do a big cop out and I'm going to dress up in clothes because that's what I love. And Knickers Model Zone really came from, I was flicking through a copy of Vogue magazine thinking about fashion, and I stumbled across a photograph of David Beckham, and he was wearing a suit. And on the spine of the magazine, which I always love to read the credits on the spine, it just said "Watch Models Own." And I thought, that's really interesting. I wonder if I could say Knickers Models Own. Would that be too offensive to anybody? And then I went downstairs and sort of blurted it out to my husband, who works in marketing, and he sort of quietly nodded. And I could see that was a tick. That was a proof, that was him saying, you know what, I think that's quite clever.
And so, tell us a bit about the mechanics of how every day for that year, back in 2015, I guess.
Mm.
What did you go to the shop and just buy a whole load of stuff and that lasted a month, or did you go
Well,
every day, or how did
yeah.
it work?
I'd like to say that I had some amazing business plan. I was fully prepared. I knew what I was doing. I had a strategy. I did not. And I hold my hands up with that because actually I think that was my savior. I don't think you need to over strategize some stuff. And in business, I also don't think you do. I think it's okay to wing it and be creative and go with your instincts. It can be very stifling if you over plan stuff. However, to answer your question, because I didn't plan anything, I had no idea or no thought of who was going to take my picture every day. That was the harder bit, actually finding the clothes, which were mainly from my local Cancer Research UK shop in Harpenden. That was actually the easy bit because I knew that I had a supply of clothes. I knew I could go in and trawl and find things. And because I have such a great relationship and because I volunteer there, after about 6 days, they went, look, you really don't need to come in and buy things. You can just take stuff. We'll work it out at the end. So just find stuff that you like, take it home, and then we'll worry about what we do with all those clothes at the end. As it happened, towards the end of the year, I had a huge sale and we sold my entire wardrobe, which was like some bloody cleansing thing. My whole house suddenly was empty of everything. So I didn't think it through. I had to find very quickly, my kids who were all at primary school, they were my main photographers until about day 6 when they went back to school. I was like, oh, well, who's going to take my picture now? And so I had to reach out to strangers. I had to stop people in the street and say, look, you don't know me. I'm not a weirdo. I'm just going to tell you very briefly about Knickers Model Zone. You're only going to hear the word Knickers, but I'll bear with me. And can you hold my iPhone 6? And can you please not run off with it? And can you just take my picture? And no one said no. And I went from being somebody that was really awkward in front of the camera. I really, really didn't know what I was doing back in 2015 in the early days. I had no clue about light, about how to hold yourself, about composition. I knew nothing about that. And so everything you're seeing here, which is this year, this is because I've learned the skill, I think, of composition and, what I'm hoping to get out of a picture and how to bring something together. But in 2015, in the early days, clueless. I was absolutely clueless.
All right, so these beautiful images that we've got that we're looking at now are the ones from the most, previous weeks, a few weeks ago, or this week or whatever.
Yeah.
So all these clothes are from a charity shop in Harpenden, are they?
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
and what's your background, Caroline? Are you a fashion journalist? Do you work in fashion, or are you just someone interested in clothes? What do you do?
Well, what do I do? Well, I'm a juggler, I'm a juggler of stuff. I have a corporate background and I did work in a marketing role when I was in a corporate role. Then I would say I'm probably an early adopter of stuff. So I jumped onto Instagram really early. I loved the space. I loved Twitter actually. Twitter was a very, very warm, embracing space. So I've done all sorts of things. I've set up my own online shop selling British made goods. I did that back in 2007. So I was a really early adopter of social media actually. More latterly, since Knickers Model Zone in 2015, since the launch of that's taken me into a whole new world. I've got a podcast series where I've interviewed other very influential fundraisers about a spark of their idea, their creativity, where that comes from. I circulate in this sort of slow fashion content creator world. And I'm very often referred to as, the OG or which is lovely. I mean, I don't think I am, but I think
What does that mean?
it means the original, the original goat, the greatest of all time. I don't, what I mean by that is I think I'm recognized as somebody that was established in it 10 years ago. Now there are a lot of, everybody's wearing secondhand. It's a very normalized thing to do. But back 10 years ago when I was doing the launch of Knickers Model Zone, I was, very often described as kooky and a bit off center. And, a woman wears charity clothes was actually a headline quite a lot of the time. So I've always been creative. I've always loved expressing myself through my clothes because of my love of music. The two things for me have always overlapped. I've got a sort of, you can see through my style, my love of the 60s, the mod influence, Northern Soul, Motown, that runs through very often a lot of my looks with a solid fringe and my eyeliner and inspiration.
And when you launched it back in 10 years ago, how did you get pickup and what was the impact of you getting coverage? And I'm obviously going to ask you how much money you raised as well.
Yeah, so good question about pickup. Again, because I had no strategy, I thought genuinely I would do it for about 11 days and then we'd all stop and I'd stop fundraising and we would all go home. I had no intention when I wrote my Just Giving page. I had no intention of it being for a whole year. I don't know what I was even thinking about. I thought, there's no way I'm going to do this for a year. It's ridiculous. At some point, I'll have bored everybody and I'll probably have raised a couple of £100 and we can just close it and go home and I can carry on with my day. This is a warning to anybody out there because sometimes things don't always happen as you expect. And Katie Lewis, who's a journalist from the BBC, who lives locally to me, picked up my story on about day 5 and she saw me through Facebook. She's a Facebook, a mum in another Facebook group that I belong to. She saw my story and she contacted me and said, I'd like to interview you about your campaign. It was the first time I'd heard that word and I sort of stopped and said, well, I'm not being funny, but I've only got 5 photos. What are you talking about? She said, no, I can see the reach that possibly you can't. You said you're going to do this for a year. You've said that this is about secondhand. You're going to be talking to the slow or the green economy, the green agenda, as it was called then. Sustainability wasn't even a word. It wasn't part of the spoken word back then. You're also going to appeal to anyone who just likes a fix of fashion or someone who's going through grief or someone that's just reconnecting with their confidence. And she was mapping out for me what I couldn't see. And she wrote a piece and the next morning it ended up on the BBC UK homepage on the top 10 most read articles between, and I honestly, this is true, between the Pope and Angela Merkel, there was a picture of me. And that was the moment, that was the turning point. I couldn't go back then because I'd had 97,000 people went to my Facebook page straight away. And that's the power. And then the Mail Online, because they have a massive organic reach, they interviewed me the next morning. And so the combination of those two was so powerful, and it just amplified immediately. There was no going back. Suddenly I had to pick the phone up to Cancer Research UK and go, hi, I'm just doing this thing. You might want to know what's happened.
And what was their reaction?
Well, luckily they picked the phone up, and I've talked about this quite a lot actually. They picked the phone up and they said yes. They listened and they went, okay, this is something we need to connect with you on. Quite often when you're at the beginning of a fundraising project, you get no, or you get no, thank you, we can't squeeze you in, or we're busy with our annual planner, bye. They actually, I was lucky enough to speak to the right person quite quickly, and they went, oh, okay, wow, right, we're going to wrap some people around you, because we can't get that sort of coverage. We need to support you. And so they did, yeah. And it was, so they very quickly they did. And that then after that, I think I had a Guardian piece, which was, it was really moving. It was a really touching interview. And again, I thought that might just be a very small piece in the weekend section. It ended up being on the front page of the broadsheet of the weekend.
I think that's where I first saw it. Yeah. Yeah.
And that was amazing. That was lovely coverage for me.
And
yeah. I was learning about being interviewed on the hop. I'd never been interviewed before.
And do you think how important was it for you to kind of make sure the message about, well, what is the message you're trying to get across with this? Is it about clothing? Is it about, there's quite a few different messages that you could be focusing on. What's your sort of main message?
I mean, my message this year, my message to my audience is that this is about a woman who's 10 years older, who is feeling far more confident, joyous in what I'm doing, feeling strong and confident because I'm wearing secondhand. And I'm doing that because I'm supporting the Cancer Research UK is the place to shop. These charity shops have the most brilliant clothes. And I'm still pushing forward with, awareness of breast cancer. My mum had breast cancer. She lived with breast cancer for 13 years. I'm very aware, I'm coming up to the point where she first was diagnosed. I'm 56, I'll be 57 in August. There's lots of similarities in where our lives crossed over. So I'm very driven to raise as much awareness about breast cancer as I can. And I have a platform now that I'm very responsible, and I care about my platform, and I have a really lovely, engaging audience as well. So this year is very different. The fact I've gone back to it 10 years on, and I'm reflecting over how I felt with my grief, and I'm looking at my pictures, because one of the posts I do every day is a comparison between what I'm wearing today versus what I was wearing exactly 10 years ago to the day. And it's a little piece of art in itself, actually, because it's a collection that most people don't have on their photo reel. It's unusual to have a photograph of yourself every single day that you can compare yourself with. And one of the messages I want to get out to women is, we should be kinder to ourselves about what we see in front of the camera. We're so visually critical, and I don't use apps, and I am what I am. And I hope that if you saw me in real life, you go, oh yeah, you know what? She does look like her photos. So yeah, I'm championing midlife women, and the importance of the place that we have in society, that the values that we can bring. And this is not just
what was the thinking behind going to revisit 10 years down the line? Did you sort of think about that 1 year ago and think, oh, next year will be 10 years, I might revisit?
I think I was thinking about it probably 2 or 3 years earlier. I was like, oh, it's obvious, it's a 10-year anniversary, and I wanted to bring some joy to the year. I wanted to be triumphant in everything I'm wearing, and put together looks that make me feel great and drive me through the day. And I thought I'm completing the circle, really, because 10 years ago, those very early photographs were difficult. They were really painful for me to take, and I struggled very often. The tears were really close there. And I wanted to revisit that. I thought it was just a fantastic little project, really, to get my teeth into. My kids have gone to uni, I'm more independent now.
Yeah, fantastic. All right. Well, why don't we see the little bit of breakfast TV that was on 3 or 4 weeks ago,
Yeah.
where you featured? So, Amy, if you can pull that up, and then if anyone's got any questions for Caroline off the back of that, now is a good time to think of anything. But this was on breakfast TV a few weeks ago, and I think it was part of was it part of the business slot, or was it just part of the main
Yeah. So
program?
do you want me to talk about it now, just
Yeah,
before you
sure. Yeah, yeah,
hit
yeah.
play? So yeah, they contacted me. One of the producers contacted me, and again, that was on the back of a BBC article that Katie Lewis, that same journalist who interviewed me 10 years ago, she wrote another piece about me, and then that was sort of brought to the attention of the production team at BBC Breakfast. They're doing a piece about this thing called New to Me. You might hear them talk in the voiceover. They'll say that Caroline is doing a project called New to Me. I'm not, but just to be clear, my campaign is called Knickers Model Zone. But anyway, they came to my house. I had a camera crew in my house for about 3 hours, and we were making this short film. And pieces of press like this, media coverage like this, are incredible for elevating your message. The impact this had the next hour, the next 2 hours, the next day was incredible. And out of this came lots of local radio. I did 7 rounds on BBC Radio. So yeah, it's an amazing thing to get onto the BBC.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's watch this little clip.
What's already in the wardrobe or buy second hand, but commit to not buying any new clothes for a whole year. So the item might not be brand new, but it is new to you. It's another sign of the popularity of second-hand clothing, whether found in a charity shop or bought online. Vinted, that's the online marketplace for second-hand fashion, says that 84%, so most of their customers, rate the second-hand items that they buy as good or even better than their new item purchases. And that market for second-hand clothes is booming, not just here, but around the world. So according to global data, worldwide sales have more than trebled from £2.1 billion in 2016. And look at that, by 2023, £6.5 billion. So do you think you could do it? Spend a whole year committing to used clothes only? We've been to meet one woman who's doing just that. Caroline has set herself a challenge to not buy any new clothes for a whole year, although fresh underwear is allowed. She calls this challenge New to Me and first did it 10 years ago. The money she saved went to charity as a tribute to her mum who died from cancer.
I set about a whole year in 2015 of styling myself every single day in a different charity outfit, all from Cancer Research UK. And in 2015, it was a time when people weren't really wearing secondhand in the way they are now, so it was all quite new and exciting. 10 years on, I've decided to bring it back, to put the joy back in secondhand and hopefully inspire people to style and shop secondhand. So it's about fun, it's about reconnection with charity shopping.
Whether it's to save cash, cut down on waste or test run retro styles, dressing secondhand offers a huge helping hand to charities.
Charity shops earn something like £250 million a year from their retail operations. The hospice network, for example, gains more money from its retail operations than it actually gets from the government, and it's vital income for them.
Most parents will have noticed the cost of school uniforms rising, and this mum from Lancaster decided to organise a recycling and reselling scheme at her children's school.
It can be a struggle for anybody having to buy a school uniform, even more so when it's has a badge on it and you only have one specific shop that you can buy it from. The items are like new. And a lot of them are new. They'll come to us still with tags attached. And if you're paying a tiny fraction of the cost, even if it's just one jumper or one cardigan, it makes such a difference.
You know, all the clothes behind me are pieces that I've collected really slowly over 10 years, 20 years, 30 years.
A deep dive to the back of the wardrobe or second-hand bargains. Caroline says, new to me is one trend that can suit everyone.
That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
You came across really well, I think, as well, about, you know, just why you're doing it and what you're doing it
Thank
for.
you.
And being the BBC, I worked there for 28 years until last week. They had to find a serious talking head to give some seriousness to the piece as well.
Yeah,
The second
yeah.
angle, finding the whatever. But no,
Yeah.
I thought that, and actually the whole zeitgeist of secondhand clothing and recycling, and I see Karen. I don't know if is Karen still with us? Yes, she is. But you said you're a bit poorly, Karen. But you're from Simply Repair, Kendall Repair Cafe, and Cumbria Clothing Collective. So I don't know whether you can come off mute, Karen, and observe. Is this something that's going on in the world a bit more than it used to?
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yeah. It's definitely an increase in secondhand, and what we're encouraging people to do is, you know, if things don't quite, if they see something in a charity shop, it doesn't quite fit, they can come and learn how to alter it and repair it and make it fit. They can make their own clothes last longer by coming to get them repaired, and we're busy. We do monthly repair cafes, and we're busy every week with people coming in. More and more people are keen to do this, and we also run workshops if people want to improve the skills. And we have a sewing group where people can come every month and just do their own stuff. And it's really popular.
Yeah, I recently read that book Less by who's the guy off sewing? Patrick, what's his name? Patrick Wright?
Grant.
Yeah.
Patrick Grant. Which probably, Karen, you're familiar with as well, and clearly you are, Caroline. In fact, I think you know Patrick, don't you? You've done some bits and bobs with him.
I do.
So it's basically, and he's set up a clothing company which is all, you know, made in Britain and quality, etc., etc. Because his big thing is we just make stuff and just chuck it away these days. We don't value beautifully made things. And it's a really interesting sort of mindset change to think, how can I make this last? Or if I can get something really good quality, like 100 years ago, you know, it will last a lot longer, etc., etc. It's fascinating. And I think this, you know, definitely there's a movement going on at the moment. Amy, you've very politely got your hand up.
Really interesting to hear everything that you've said, Caroline, because like you, I've grown up with hand-me-downs. I love charity shopping, and I've always loved it. But yeah, it's just interesting to observe sort of over those 10 years, there's far more charity shops, which for me is brilliant. I love it. And Carlisle in Cumbria has got so many good charity shops.
Make a note.
Recommend it. I'm going to be shopping in them next week myself. But yeah, so it's a really positive thing for me that there's more charity shops on the high street. But I think at the same time in the media, we've had this narrative of the high street's dead, the death of the high street, and almost as if charity shops are a negative connotation, because there are, you know, the big retail Debenhams and the big retail shops are dying off, and it's almost seen as a negative thing. So I think there's these two different narratives that are going on, and for me it's all positive. But I wonder what you think about that other more negative side. Do you still think that that's, you know, talked about in the media? Or
I do hear that, and I push back on that. You know, I one of the things that's I'm able to do now is able to have a voice and opinion about stuff that I probably didn't really understand 10 years ago. So now I see the absolute importance of bricks and mortar high street shops, the role they play in gluing a community together, and the fact that the high street is constantly evolving, and that's an okay thing, I think. You know, stagnation is not good, but a charity shop brings together a group of people as volunteers who you might never, ever get to meet or hang out with in any other capacity. I have great friends who I've met solely through that route. So I also believe that you only make great purchasing decisions when you touch things. And I think we need to go back to that a little bit and remember that 75% of online purchases in fashion get returned. or maybe don't get returned. They end up in the back of your wardrobe. And
75%, did you say?
75%.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And believe me, they don't go back to where you think they're going back to. They go back to, very often, they'll go back to they'll go back into a different chain. And sometimes they'll end up at Oxfam's distribution centre because the big brands can't afford to repack stuff and get it back onto their shelves. So there's a whole load of stuff going on there, which we can talk about another time perhaps. But my message really is to people that you make your best purchasing decisions when you try stuff on, when you go and look, when you touch, hold, smell, feel, or use all of your sensories to make a decision, an informed decision. And high streets play that role of interaction and teaching children how to interact with shop sellers and, you know, have interactions. I think they play such an important role. And if we stripped all that away and we were just, you know, doing everything online, it would be a very sad place to be, I think. So I'm a big champion of slowing down our consumption, leaving empty-handed, not rushing your decisions and buying in store. Now, obviously, I'm fundraising this year, so I'm wearing a different outfit every day. That is not normal. I don't normally wear different clothes every day. But I definitely feel that's an important message to get out to people. And I do challenge people. It's not all, you don't have to buy, you don't have to have stuff instantly. You can save up and wait.
Bit old-fashioned, yeah, absolutely.
Sorry, yeah.
Save up and wait.
Yeah, no,
I totally agree.
Radical.
I'm going to come to some messages in chat in a second. Caroline, I'm just flicking through some messages there. Here we go. Great coverage and cause, Caroline. Well done. That's Amanda. Wow, this is an amazing thing, Caroline. Thank you so much for sharing your story and congratulations. That's Christine.
Thank you.
And then Karen talking about the work that she's been doing. I'm working with the council to get pre-loved items and repair on the high street. The Ulverston Repair Cafe also repairs clothes. There's a repair cafe in Penrith too. And Karen's just put a link there to Simply Repair, which has a list of others on Cumbria on the website. And Alston has a repair cafe once a month in the town hall. Derek, could I invite you just to come off mute there? You've put something really lovely in chat there. Can I ask you just to sort of share that little story?
Yes. My mother had breast cancer. That was diagnosed when I was about 10. And as you can see quite easily, that is quite a long time ago. And I grew up knowing that because I was put in the picture by my parents from the start. And now that I've had several different cancers, I've always done that with my daughter too. I think that was a time though when people were quite reluctant to speak openly about cancer. And eventually my mother died. Actually, it was about 10 days before I took my finals. Having just set herself goals to keep going. So that's one reason why your story really has, means a lot to me. And I think knowing quite how to react to that is difficult. I don't actually, oddly, on the other point, I don't usually buy clothes in charity shops, but I have been shedding quite a lot of clothes in the last week and giving them to a charity shop in Cockermouth.
Which one, Derek?
Sorry?
Which one?
Well, it's a children's society because
I know
it's a
well.
very, very good shop, and
Yeah,
I'm afraid it's also somewhere where I buy quite a lot of books, far more than I should. But I think it's a very well-run shop, very good organisation, and supporting children is also a great cause.
Oh, thank you.
So,
thank you for sharing that with us and with me. It's very moving to hear you talk about your mother, and I'm pleased to have shared my story with you. Your grief was you were a lot younger when you lost your mother, and that must have been very difficult.
I was 22.
Yeah. But pivotal point of your life, I would imagine. So thank you
Absolutely.
Thank you for sharing that. And I will have to get myself up to that charity shop, because your clothes, by the looks of it, are beautiful. You choose well. I wear a lot of men's clothes, actually, myself.
I don't think so. I think I could easily be said to be dressed by Oxfam, but I'm not.
Amy says, I think there's not as good a selection of men's clothes in charity shops. I wonder why.
Good point. You know, have we noticed when we go in a charity shop, the men's clothes are normally at the back in one full section. And I think probably that's because I'm talking very broadly here, but women, we rotate our wardrobes a far greater pace. You know, if we're going to an event, we need a new outfit. We couldn't possibly be seen in something we've previously worn. So I think men's clothes, they hold on to them for a longer. You possibly buy better, actually. And I will always go to the men's section. I'm on the lookout, Derek, for your Aquascutum Jaeger, beautiful St. Michael, classic St. Michael's from 1960s and 70s. I want your Barbers, anything that you've been wearing that's beautifully tailored. I will be on the lookout. I will hunt them down. The quality is always far better.
It's on Main Street in Cockermouth, Carlisle. So next time you're up, you'll find it. We'll draw this conversation to a close. How much have you raised, Caroline? I'm not sure you've told us.
No, I raised in 2015 offline and online donations. I think raised about 70,000.
Wow.
And this year I've just reached my 2,000 mark. So I'm hoping, you know, with a good push, I've got a whole year ahead of me. I'd like to really get closer. You know, someone said to me, how much do I want to raise in total? But it's always good to have a bit of an ambition. I'll just keep pushing forward, and I'm so grateful to anybody that makes a donation. It pushes me on, and I'm very thankful.
Well, thank you. Please put a link into chat.
Yeah, I will do.
That we can find out a bit more about that.
Yeah, thank you.
And thank you very much for spending the time talking to us this morning. I think it's a great story, and I think
thank you so much.
I love the way you talk about it and are able to share sort of things you've learned. And that, just getting back to what you said right at the start, Knickers Models Own is genius. Your husband was right to nod sagely when you went downstairs at 10 minutes to midnight, whatever it was, and say, what do you reckon about this? Because it just, you know, it catches the imagination. And actually it kind of says what the project is as well, very cleverly, because you think, well, what's all that about? What is it when models do? Yeah, I like watch, etc., etc. So anyway, great. Thank you for. And when you're next in Cumbria, which obviously hasn't been for a while, you've got a lot of friends who will be very happy to give you a cup of tea and talk.
Invite me. I'd love to. If you're doing any festivals or anything you want me to come and talk, if I can tie it in, please, you know, do connect with me. I'll put my details in the chat now, shall I?
Great, that'd be lovely. Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thank you so much. Lovely to have met you all.
Great stuff. Lots of nice comments in chat as well. Have a look at those too. Right, well, let's move from Knickers Models Own to Dancing Slippers Models Own. I don't know what the connection is, but anyway, Zoe is an amazing dancer, dance teacher, entrepreneur, and it's got a new project up and running, or about to become up and running. So Zoe, we're going to get your slides up and a little bits of film in there as well, and tell us what's going on.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Tom. Caroline, thank you. It was so fascinating to hear your story, and what an act to follow. Not feeling intimidated at all, everyone. So I actually donned a charity shirt that I absolutely love, and so I thought I'd join in today with your charity aspect. But it was really fascinating hearing your journey as well, just from it becoming just this random idea, and then how much it's grown. So you must be so proud. So thank you so much for sharing it. I'll try to be as inspiring, if I possibly can be, as Caroline. So I am Zoe Gadd, as many of you may or may not know. I thank you, Tom, for letting me speak and just tell people about my latest project. I've returned to Cumbria after a period of time away, and it's actually a year in, maybe today actually. I moved back at the very end of February, so this is a marking of a year of my return to Carlisle and Cumbria. It's been quite a challenging year, I'm not going to lie, to try and get things up and running. And I recognise what Tom said at the beginning. I tend to have lots of plates. I think Caroline's statement as a juggler of stuff is definitely something I can relate to. But I'm just very inspired by lots of different things and see potential in ideas and conversations. And yeah, I want to try. Amanda Drago knows this incredibly well as well, that I like to try my hand at as many things as possible in the short life that we've got. So this is a new class that I'm launching. It is dance theatre, which some of you may be familiar with. Others may be familiar but not know that you're familiar. Others may have no idea at all and just think, oh, another dance class, not sure it's for me. So I thought I'd give you a little bit of insight into my practice and just the type of work that I have produced in the past and the type of work that I'd love to keep on producing and sharing with communities in Carlisle and beyond. So it's a short kind of 15 minutes of fame for me to get it all in as much as I can. So we'll get going. So this is the class. University of Cumbria have rented me a space, so we're working in a lovely studio with a sprung floor from the 10th of March on Monday evenings from 6:30 until 8:30. It is a class that's intergenerational. So if we can skip to the next slide, please, Amy. I'll tell you a little bit about what dance theatre is first, and I'm going to bring it back round to the classes after I've given you a little bit of insight to see if it appeals. So dance theatre, there's a few images at the top. The lady on the end is not me. It is Pina Bausch, who is largely recognised as one of the main kind of creators, I guess, of dance theatre. She was a German practitioner who built her company, Wuppertal Tanztheater. And she was born in 1940. But one of the things that I like about her story in particular, and I think it's inspired my journey into theatre and merging dance with different types of theatre, was the fact that she worked for years in her parents' cafe and she used to observe people, and she was a people person. And dance theatre is a genre which really allows, depending on how it's approached, there's many different, this is not a lecture on it, but there are many different approaches that people take to dance theatre. But one of the things about it is that it's often driven by imagery that can capture human expression, or that is a comment on human expression and what it means for us to be people, how we interact, how we engage with others, how we experience things that we're going through in day-to-day life, or the bigger picture in terms of socio-political kind of aspects of the world. And the art form dance theatre allows us to steal, to cherry pick, if you like, from different genres and different disciplines within theatre itself, to build and communicate to an audience through a lot of different means. So it's an interdisciplinary form of theatre. So it blends movement with narrative, dialogue, music, visual art, whatever it needs for that particular project to achieve sharing that message or creating an experience for an audience. So over the past several years, I set up Dance Ahead in 2008 as my sole trading name. So in 2008 onwards, I've kind of aimed to get theatre and contemporary dance off the stage and into unusual, unconventional places, so the public kind of domain. So if we skip on to the next slide, there are some images from previous work. I worked with my sister, who's a milliner. She's a local milliner who built her business, Sarah Gadd Millinery. She built, shameless plug, she built her business following completion of the Contemporary Applied Arts course up at the University of Cumbria, where I also trained in performing arts originally. And she has been running her business ever since. She's still based in Cumbria. It's a bit of a dying trade. And I think to be a milliner who's creating such beautiful handmade and hand sculpted pieces is really shows her resilience, let's say, particularly having survived COVID. So yeah, this is an insight we set it up together with an idea of merging. We wanted to work together as sisters. We wanted to merge our love of fashion, funnily enough, linking to Caroline's, and also movement, and to see how that could be presented in different ways. So we created living statues. We had quite a good relationship with the Leigh shopping centre in Carlisle, and had living mannequins and choreographed performances within windows in shops like Hooper's, for those of you who remember it, which is now currently sitting empty, sadly. And
week's time. Thanks, everybody.